What's up, guys? Welcome to the Dad Edge Podcast. I'm Larry Hagner, your host and founder of this show. I'm laughing because this is like my seventh take on trying to do this intro. And so I'm just going to say today's guest's name just to get it out of the way. So his name is Stefanos Sifandos. Yes, it's almost as cool as Larry Hagner, like almost as cool. So, and hey, guess what? Today is my birthday. Yes, July 6th is my birthday. Man, I am 45 years old. I know what you're thinking. If you're catching this on YouTube, I know what you're thinking. I don't look a day over 44. So thank you very, very much. No, man, today is my birthday. To be honest, I don't make a big deal out of birthdays. They're another day. I don't like getting older. That's the thing. I just don't like it. I'm one of those dudes, man. I don't like getting older. Maybe that's why I'm getting up early every morning and doing my exercises, making sure, trying to stay young, trying to keep up with 4 kids, right? But hey, today's show is a good one. It really is. Lots of chemistry with my guest today, Stefanos. He's a good dude. He's an he is a trained educator and a relationships expert with a background in behavioral science. He's passionate about leading people closer to the highest potential and each other. His philosophy merges with Eastern and Western mythologies to promote spiritual balance and empower people to live in the life that they love. From trauma release to navigating the murky waters of modern masculinity to helping women understand the men in their lives. He helps people escape negative patterns and cultivate a positive sense of self. He has worked with thousands of men and women of all walks of life, special forces, soldiers. I can't talk today. Special forces, soldiers, Olympic gold medalists, elite firefighters, and everyday people have relied on him to restructure and reframe their relationships with themselves and with their loved ones. Yes, Stefanos Sifandos. He is actually Greek and Italian, but also has this Australian accent. If you can like follow all that. So fun interview. We had a lot of laughs. What he's going to talk about today is the power of forgiveness and healing, how to be successful in your marriage and in relationships, and how to heal from your childhood and play at an elite level as a parent. That's what we're talking about today, man. Stefanos Sifandos. Yes, not everyone can have as cool a name as him, but that's who we're talking to today. All right, gentlemen, no more talk from me. Here is my interview with the one, the only, with a cool name, Stefanos Sifandos. Stefanos, what's going on, man? Welcome to the Dad Edge Podcast, brother.
I'm excited to be here, man.
I'm excited to have you. And do you know why?
You're about to tell me, though.
I am. You almost have as cool of a name as I do, which is Larry. Which, by the way, like when you go up to a woman and you're like, "Hello, my name is Larry," like I guarantee it probably has almost the same effect as "Hello, I'm Stefanos." So
in Australia, we call you Lazar because Australia's grammar is fucked. So everything is either an A at the end of it, or we're going to try and transform the name, make it shorter, make it longer. It's just you'd be called Lazar in Australia.
Okay, all right, I can take that. Yeah, man. So your name, when we were introduced, it jumped like right off the screen as we were introduced. I was like, Stefanos, that's kind of a cool name. And so I know you and I were chatting before we got started. You're half Greek, you're half Italian, and then you lived in Australia, which that's like quite a combination, my friend.
Yeah. Now I live in Austin, Texas. Now I'm wearing cowboy hats and I've got Remington next to me. So this is how we roll.
Oh yes, that is perfect. And which, by the way, man, the ink is legit, man. How much ink? How many hours of ink do you have?
I think I calculate it's about 80 something hours of ink.
80 hours.
But it depends, it depends on the artist. Some artists are really slow, some are really long, some are really fast. The artist that's done the vast majority of my work, he's pretty quick. So he's done well. But yeah, I've got 2 arms done and a chest piece and a little bit on my back, and that's all for now. I'm still going to get my whole back done, but I don't know. It's a bit of an effort.
Yeah, man. That's dedication right there.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool, man. So real quick on your current life. This is a dad show. We've done over 500 episodes.
That's awesome.
And and I think I can count on one hand how many men who aren't dads who've been on the show. But
I'm honored then.
Yeah, you've got quite a message. Done some homework on you, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you. And I think we're going to help a lot of guys. But current state of affairs for you, you are married, correct?
Yes.
No kids.
No kids.
Okay. But you were a kid at one point, right?
As far as I remember, and that could have been a memory incepted through aliens or robots or artificial intelligence, but as far as I remember. Which I've blocked most of my childhood out, by the way, for very, very specific reasons.
Well, let's start there. I know your childhood was kind of crazy. And that's, if you really look at your life, I mean, this is where I think a lot of things started for you, but share with us what your childhood did look like.
And not to downplay my childhood in any capacity, I had a very tumultuous, turbulent childhood, and I know many people that have had far, quote unquote, worse than me. However, my childhood for me it felt very unsafe. So violent father, abusive father, emotionally, physically, even mum as well. Like, their relationship together was very volatile. They're still together. It's still volatile. There was a lot of uncertainty in my childhood, and a lot of judgment, a lot of control, a lot of pressure to be someone that I either did want to be but didn't know how to be, didn't have much guidance. Dad wasn't around much, and when he was just fucking hectic. He was very, very turbulent in his behavior and very reactive as a man, unreliable, very difficult to be around, very moody. At the same time, and this was part of the conflict and the turbulence, had a really massive heart. And it was difficult because come sort of Christmas time, he'd make all this effort to get me and my brother Christmas presents. We thought, he really loves us and cares for us. But then that would be tainted by him just losing his shit randomly later on that afternoon. And it was constantly walking. We have a saying in Australia, I'm not sure if it's him, but walking on eggshells, like that's what it felt like, for the vast majority of my life, my childhood, should I say, vast majority of my childhood. And so that was challenging times, particularly then. I've done a lot of deep work around that, a lot of healing, moving through. I was listening to a really cool TEDx talk by Dolph Lundgren yesterday on forgiveness. And he's the TEDx talk was great. Really, really cool, really cool. Very open-hearted. He'd come from a very abusive background as well. I remember he was saying a story about he'd have to go to school with bruises and be battered because his father was in the military, and that's not why he'd go to school battered. But his father was in the military and he's a very hard man, and sometimes he'd had pieces of his hair missing. And I thought to myself, I was watching this, I thought, oh fuck, I remember that too, and I completely forgot that. I told you I just suppressed most of my childhood, right? Because we do that. The psyche will do that when, if something's too overwhelming and too intense, it just suppresses it as a coping strategy, right? And so I remember times where I had pieces of my hair, and I was bleeding and pieces of my hair out, like chunks, because my dad would be dragging me from one room to the other. It was an interesting childhood, to say the least, and it really affected me negatively, and it affected my relationships for a very long time until I really sat down with myself and chose to do the deep work to go into that and equilibrate that and really deal with the trauma and the wounding and the process of feeling the unfelt feelings and the forgiveness process and all of that. That it's a process. It's not just it's not a one-off thing, right? And many men, I'm sure, can relate to this. Women as well, but many people can relate to a very rough, violent childhood. Man, I just want to acknowledge you for a second. So you acknowledge and appreciate you. Your childhood and mine was very similar. There was always, my mom was married 3 times. There was always that element of toxicity with whatever male she was with, sometimes just dating, right? I say this all the time, but half my childhood was spent without a father figure, and the other half was usually spent with a toxic one, which I'm really understanding why you and I were connected, and why the person who connected us was like this, like you two dudes were like made to do a show, like without a doubt.
So I get that. I feel that. The other thing too is I didn't know that about Dolph Lundgren. Now that explains why he's so angry and he killed Apollo Creed. So there's that.
There's that. Clear explanation.
There's an explanation why he's so angry. But no, going back to that, you had brothers, you said?
One younger brother, 5 years younger.
Okay. And just the two of you?
Just the two of us, yeah.
Okay. So how old is your dad now?
79 this year.
Okay. And what's your relationship?
Yes, 78 this year.
What's your relationship with like him now?
Our relationship is, I don't like using the word good. Our relationship it's healthy, but that's because I've done a shit ton of years of fucking work on that. There was a lot of anger that I had towards him. There was a lot of, he still doesn't accept responsibility for who he is. He's still, he's in early stages of Alzheimer's as well. There's a lot, my father was a very hurt man as well. He was abused as a child. This shit's generational. Now, I'm not making excuses for him or for anyone that behaves in that way. However, it is an affliction point for understanding, and through understanding, which is a more cognitive process, we can, because men are quite cognitive in that sense, we can slipstream into feeling, and that becomes more of an empathetic process. And that process of empathy allows us to feel our own feelings, which feeling is essentially freeing. And in freedom, there's expansion, and hate and anger and fear, they're restricted states of being. They don't fit in the model of expansion. And so freedom is expansion, is love. And so I'm able to go there. Do we still have tension points? Does he still annoy me? Absolutely. But how I feel about him intrinsically is very different to how I did feel about him many years ago. One thing I will say, I need to give him a call because we haven't spoken for some time. He lives in Greece. So him and my mother live in Greece. I live in the US, and I haven't spoken to him for a couple of months. So I need to really touch base with him. That's just a reminder of, life gets busy, et cetera, et cetera. But I'd like to hear from him and see how he is. He's also been unwell. He's had cancer twice, and he's got some heart issues now. He's got some weight issues. He hasn't looked after himself emotionally and physically over the years. And so, again, that's a byproduct of what his experiences were, how he interpreted those experiences, what he made them mean, and his choices not to deal with his pains. And
how old are you?
I'm 37.
37. You seem like a very evolved person for everything you've been through. And I think everyone and their brother would be like, hey man, like if you want to hold a grudge, like we all get it. We all understand it. And it would be understood that it would be fine for you to continue to be angry and maybe not even to be in a healthy, as you call it, a healthy place with your dad. I have to imagine though, just from my own experience that this probably wasn't always so. And you had to do a ton of work, but what was the point in your life where you're like maybe playing more the victim card or maybe even the anger card? Like, what the heck, man? Like that was screwed up. Like, how dare he? So how did you get to the point where you're so evolved with this now? And I'm also really hearing, and I don't know if you tell me I'm crazy, but I'm also hearing this theme of like even forgiveness at this point. Oh yeah,
100%. Oh, okay. 1,000,000%. Yeah, for sure. And again, I'll be very clear. Don't think for a moment my dad doesn't annoy the fuck out of me. At times he does. His stubbornness, he's the way he's just in this constantly depressed, whinging state. However, I've accepted him for who he is, and I've really let go the notion of what I needed him to be. And, look, there was a time, it was a couple of months ago, like I really felt sad. I had tears for a few days where I was mourning the loss of my father. And what I meant by that is I was mourning my childhood. I was mourning not having the father that I really needed and wanted as a child. And so I still have that come up, but I just don't project that blame and shame onto him now because it doesn't serve me. I have to live with that shit. Like I can ring him up and say, fuck you, I hate you, I can't believe what you did. What's that going to do? He's not going to be able to receive that because he's not that level of awareness or emotional intelligence, relational intelligence to be able to receive that. That's just going to cause more of a barrier between, I'm going to feel guilty. I'm just going to spiral into, it doesn't serve. And so I have to deal with that stuff myself. And that's the responsibility part. And to answer or begin to respond to your question, it affected every single one of my relationships. Unconsciously, I used my childhood, my trauma, my wounding, all of that as an excuse to be an asshole. There's an excuse to be not attentive, to be unsafe, to not be in integrity, to cheat and lie, and to be unfaithful, to do what I wanted, to be hyper aggressive, to be arrogant, to be egotistical. Like I used all these as excuses without even knowing it. It wasn't a conscious thing. It wasn't I woke up in the morning and said to myself, oh, I've had a fuck childhood, now everyone else is going to suffer. It was the unconscious patterns that I was unaware of that were driving my behavior. And I only became aware of them through a relationship with a woman that I was with, where she found out that I was unfaithful, which inadvertently it sort of inverted the shame cycle for me. And I came face to face with all of my shame, and all these memories started coming up. And I had essentially, a short story, I had two choices: either continue the path that I was on of ignorance, or be very aware, be very mindful, and say, I've got to choose a new path because this isn't serving me. My businesses were up and down and fluctuating. My friendships were stable for the most part because I had formed very solid, reliable, trustworthy, loyal friendships because I wanted to get out of the house. So I would be with my friends at an early age, and friendships that I had for 20, 30 years. But every other area of my life, my intimate relationships, my sex compulsions and love compulsions, my ego-centered self, my businesses, all just volatile, exactly like my childhood. And so I had to make a decision. What do? I don't know what to do, so I'm going to seek help. And that was a big decision in and of itself because that was tough to admit that I needed help. Because I developed a very strong body, a strong sense of self. You know, my laurels were rested on, I can climb a mountain that's 5,000 meters. I can climb a mountain, 15,000 foot. I can climb a mountain. I can do this. I can run this marathon. I can compete in this competition. I can do that. Like I'd predicated myself on the more physical stuff I could do that were challenges, and I would overcome them, the more worth and value I had. And I was doing all of that on my own, so to rely on other people was difficult, but I knew it was the only path because I didn't have the answers, because clearly what I was doing wasn't working and I wasn't doing much. So I needed a shift.
How old were you when all this started to happen?
Look, I've been, again, very blessed that, and even though I've had issues with my mother as well, and there's been mother wounding there, which, by the way, it's important to note this: the father wound and the mother wound aren't formal psychological conditions or terms. They're just insights and gateways into other psychological issues such as codependency and so forth. But they're not formal psychological terms. But I had mother and father wound, right? And I was closer with my mother, and she exposed me to a great deal of spirituality from a very young age. Like I'm talking little kid, 4, 5, 3 years old, whatever. So I had this very diverse exposure to new ways of being in the world. And so I started that journey of exploring myself at a young age. However, I'd always pull back when it got too hard. I wasn't quote unquote stoic in that sense. I couldn't ask the question, why is this happening for me, and move through it and have a growth mindset. I would just say, I would play the victim. Why is this happening to me? Then I'd pull back and just go back to the numbing strategies: porn, prostitution, sex, alcohol, living on the edge, delinquency, crime, like just mixing with the wrong people, or mixing with unhealthy people, should I say. And so when I really made that leap, it was only about, 6 years ago, but it was a very deep 6 years. I gave up my businesses. I was someone that had multiple degrees, and I was cleaning toilets. It's like 4 years ago, cleaning toilets and sweeping floors, industrial floors, because I couldn't be in a job that would pay, because it would be too much commitment. And I was opening up my heart and exploring myself and doing all these things that I just wanted some money so I could eat. And so I was doing things like that, which was very humbling for me as well. But during that time, I was just opening up my heart and really going deep into who I was. And that's when that commitment really started. But I wouldn't have been able to do that without all of the work that I'd done before as well.
I actually got a minor in toilet cleaning. So, the school I went to, I think I cleaned, I have 4 boys, Stefanos. So you got a major in fucking toilet cleaning. I do. And wall cleaning, because the pee ends up there too, and in the tub everywhere else. But no, on a serious note, I really relate to that whole victim thing, because I did that for a long time myself. And I got into certain vices and that kind of thing I've never had a guest share it like you did, which was like I was doing these things unconsciously. Like I would just, it's not like I'd wake up and be like, what kind of chaos could I cause because like I had this messed up childhood. I would do these things like, to be honest, like just to cope, I think, and just, or sometimes just to escape, like just to be like, I don't even want to think about this right now. So I'm just going to go do this thing. Right.
Yeah. There's a couple of parts to that. There's the dopamine hit. There's a dopamine cycle hit that we get, which shows a primal neurological evolutionary thing. And the second part to that is the avoidance and the aversion of the deep intensity, the emotional intensity and the psychological intensity that we can't deal with. And man, for me, another way that I would deal with it, I would blame others. I was very manipulative. I'd be projecting onto them. I'd shame them for the way I was feeling. I'd be codependent without thinking or knowing I was codependent because I was basing how I felt on how others were making me feel, how they treated me. And if they mistreated me, I just lashed out and got aggressive to them and blamed them for not feeling connected in my own self. I wasn't taking responsibility for who I was. So, there was a lot of undoing there, man, a lot of patterns. Like, they're just some, what I'm mentioning to you now, some of many, many patterns that I had to really go into, and multiple ego deaths. I just, cut the legs underneath me.
Yeah. So I believe you were on the Share podcast, right? With Omar, or am I making that up? Did I lose you there for a second? See here. Were you on the Share podcast with Omar?
I was, yeah. That was a great podcast.
I think that's how we got connected.
Yeah.
Love Omar.
Yeah. He's a gentleman.
And by the way, you guys watching on YouTube and in the audience, you heard that pause because there are so many people that use Zoom now. It's like clustered with stuff.
Like, fuck off and go back to what you were doing before, which was nothing. Stop using Zoom for years. I deserve to be here.
That's right. I had Zoom first. So.
It's me. We're entitled. We've been here for years.
But so vices in general. I've been working with men now for nose to nose, toes to toes for years now. Me included, right? We all have these vices, right? So for some of us, it's alcohol. For some of us, it's porn. For some, you mentioned a few yourself. Being on the Share podcast, and I don't know the answer to this or not. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you no longer drink?
No, definitely not. No, I don't drink anymore. I don't feel. I honestly, man, I only drunk to get drunk. Yeah. To figure, I don't like the taste of alcohol. The last time I drank was at my wedding, which was in September, and I got plastered. It was great fun. It only took me a drink, and I was all over the place, but great fun. I just drink now just for fun, and it literally, if I drink, it's a few drinks to get into an altered mind state, and it maybe once a year, once every couple of years, just for something different. But I just don't like the taste of alcohol.
So, but was that one of the vices beforehand?
It was, it was in my mid-teens to very early 20s. Yeah, it was I started young and finished young as well.
So how, and I like the direction that this is going in, because men in general just struggle with vices, especially, and we use it to self-regulate, to escape for a minute. Could be porn, could be alcohol, could be drugs, it could be like just thumbing through Instagram, I just don't want to think about anything right now. It's like it's just ways to escape. How have you managed, cause it sounds like you and a lot of us too, we have like this plethora, almost this buffet of vices, like, oh, I think I'll go do that. Oh, I think I'll go do that. How have you been able to discipline yourself to be like, you know what? I really don't need that anymore.
The biggest gift for me has been doing my inner work in terms of working through my wounding and my pain and my trauma, like the core wounds, really moving through feeling all that. Because men do compartmentalize, and we don't feel very effectively. It's not so much a biological, there's not so much a biological reason for that. It's more of there is a biophysical hormonal reason for that, but it's more culturally indoctrinated. It's more of a cultural conditioning, and we don't feel very well. And because we don't feel very well, we suppress, and in that suppression, we're numbing what needs to be felt and needs to be released. And we naturally, the masculine wants to be empty. Masculine is attracted towards emptiness. So going to the toilet, ejaculating, like this sense of emptiness. And when we feel empty, we in fact feel more in alignment with who we are. So bear with me, I'm going somewhere with this. Feeling our stuff allows us to feel the release. We feel compression, and we have to explode. So we either need more of the numbing that we're accustomed to. It could be workaholism, alcohol, pornography, sex, food, whatever, right? We need more of that because we have to keep the dopamine hit going and going and going. We've got to keep that wave. We've got to keep riding that wave. Or we fall and slump into a depression. And what happens is that we're never dealing with the core of what's driving our behavior, which becomes problematic for our relationships as well, which is what I found. I found that I was distant in my relationship. I was isolating myself in my relationship. I wasn't present. I wasn't attentive. Research demonstrates that the one thing a woman needs the most from a man is trustworthiness. Now, there's a slew of things that come with that: attentiveness, reliability, availability, consistency. There's a heap of things that come with that, right? But we can't be trustworthy if we're not consistent in our behavior. We can't be trustworthy if we're not doing what we say we're going to do. We can't be trustworthy if to ourselves or to others if we're not dealing with our core stuff and we're constantly numbing ourselves, because that then becomes an addiction, neurophysiologically and also behaviorally. And so for me, I had to stop all of that and just be with my stuff. I had to feel my stuff, and it was very uncomfortable and very painful. And you can't do it alone. You need a brother, you need a guy, you need a shaman, you need a psychologist, a counselor, you need a slew of people and support that helps you be who you have the potential to be. Because you won't solve your issues from the same point of consciousness that they were born from. So you need a new perspective to come in the form of varied support, external support that helps you see and navigate your way through a different way and helps you feel in a safe way as well. So feeling is really, I know most people don't want to hear this because it's very uncomfortable, but feeling, it is the way through.
And that right there is the hardest thing. Yeah. Right? It's just sitting with that, like, it'd be so much easier for me to have like 6 beers right now.
Yeah, or a 7-step process to do this. And I can give you the process. Like I've got a 6-step cyclical cycle to deal with pain. However, the biggest part of that 6-step cyclical cycle is feeling. You've got to feel shit. You've got to come face to face with it. You've got to confront it in every way.
Well, now you said it. Now we got to go talk about it. Because otherwise we're just gonna be like, well, what are the 6 things?
What are the 6 steps?
Yeah. So yeah, if you could, I mean, is there a way? And I'm sure you probably have a resource we could point the.
Yeah, you can go to YouTube. Right? Yeah, you can definitely go to YouTube. There's a 40 minute video on the 6-step. I just call it a 6-step cyclical process for healing and transformation. Yeah, it's a bit of a tongue twister, but yeah, that's basically it.
So weird. I actually developed the exact same thing. I'm kidding.
I had a feeling you did.
No, I'm seriously, I'm so intrigued by, can we go through each one briefly?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'll go through each one. So you're at the center of it, of course. And the first part is what I call depth. So you've got to go to the depth of feeling your stuff. Now we can only go so far. We only have so much capacity. Our elastic band will only stretch so much. Now everybody's elastic band is different. Someone's elastic band, they have a tolerance for pain and resilience, and they have a mental toughness that can stretch a mile. And someone else's elastic band's only a few centimeters or a few inches. Whatever it is, you've got to honor where your elastic band is. In other words, don't go too deep, too quick, too hard, because you'll lose yourself and you'll end up literally developing a psychopathy or a psychosis, a schizophrenia or a personality disorder. So you can't be in the depth of a feeling too much. That's why you need support to help pull you out. So support is something that really is a must through all of this. The next step is grounding. After you've felt you've gone enough, you've got to pull yourself back out. Okay, that's enough for today, or enough for this week, or enough for this moment. You want to ground. Grounding looks like eating good food, putting your feet in the sand, going for a swim in the ocean, getting to a park, being in nature, just ground, be in nature basically. Then you want to go for some release. Now the release looks like you want to journal is a good way to do it, or talking to a recorder, but you want to get it out of your head, get it out of your mind, because we don't want to keep that shit floating around there, because we're just going to keep thinking about it and creating stories about it and layering meaning upon meaning that isn't even accurate. After you've gone through a process of maybe journaling, you want some reprieve. Now, reprieve is self-care. Self-care could look like going for a walk. Self-care could look like watching something funny on YouTube. Self-care could look like having a bath, getting a massage, something healthy, a healthy practice that isn't quote unquote part of your addictions and isn't something that's in its extreme. So you got to be careful with reprieve. Like when we're talking about bringing pleasure into your world, saying, well, I'm going to go masturbate and watch pornography because that's pleasurable. It is, but that's also not a healthy practice, right? For various reasons. After you reprieve, you have a process of introspection. So after you've created space in your body, because the reprieve is creating space and expansion in your body to ultimately, because it's a cyclical thing, right? To go back to depth. We're nearly at depth. So the introspection is just you being in stillness and silence, because men need to be in more stillness and silence. We're too busy. We're too busy with bullshit. We're too distracted. And we need to just deal with who we are. Come face to face with our shame, our guilt, our joy, our power, our lack of, our fears. Just be introspective. And then after that, the last step is social. I call social. And that means being with friends, being with loved ones, receiving intimacy, being seen for who you are, being understood, appreciated, respected. These are fundamental things that humans need, particularly appreciation and respect. For men is very important. And then once you feel full, your tank is full, guess what? You're going back to the depth again, however you do that. It could be your next psych session. It could be a meditation that you go into. It could be a plant medicine journey. Again, I caution that, of course. It could be a shadow walking or shadow work that you're doing, because essentially a lot of this is about shadow work, dealing with our shadows, those unwanted, unseen parts of us that we repress, that we think society hates or shames us for, and that we just forget about, but really keep influencing and impacting who we are. So that's a 6-step cyclical process. And I fell across it because I just started doing this during my darkest times of suicide, feeling suicidal and feeling deeply depressed. And I just naturally did it. And then being in the space that I'm in, how I serve in the world, my career and so forth, I actually gave it structure. I thought, wow, if this can help me, maybe this can help others.
Do you think that introspection part is the hardest? Like getting rid of like when you talked about the busyness, like I feel like just humans in general, well, if I can go do this thing and insert whatever it is. Like you can drink, you can go eat, you can go just do your emails. You can do like these mindless, busy type work stuff just so I don't have to sit with myself. Because that's uncomfortable stuff. It's very uncomfortable not slowing down. Yeah. And do you think it's uncomfortable because we judge ourselves? Like we're pretty tough on ourselves.
It's uncomfortable because we judge ourselves. It's uncomfortable because we have a fear of who am I if I'm not doing, if I'm not busy. We're addicted to hyper productivity. We're addicted to our status and our material possessions. We're addicted to accelerating our career paths. We're addicted to titles. We're addicted to how we are seen. It's a systemic byproduct of our society. And so doing inherently isn't wrong. Doing is a strong masculine energetic that's required in order to live in this world. However, socioculturally, socioeconomically, and it's very evident in what we're experiencing today, what we experienced in 2008, what we experienced in the 90s, what we experienced in the early 80s, is we're too addicted to it. And systemically, there's flaws in this. And we're extreme in the behavior around this because we're so attached to these titles, this status, this, if I'm not being productive, then who and what am I? That it's scary to not be that, because then who am I? Losing your identity is it can be just as confronting as, I don't know, you insert whatever major fear you have.
So going through this whole process, was this did this really shed some light on who you are as a person? Like strip away like all this stuff and this is who I am.
Yeah, it did. It stripped away a lot of me, and that was very confronting and very scary.
So talk to me about that. That's what I was hoping you'd say. Because I'm sure once you're confronted with that, you're like, there's probably some relief, like, oh, okay, there's some good here. There's some things, you know, but there's also like, ooh, that's not very good. So how do you deal with that? And especially men in general, man, we are so self-critical of ourselves. Like we beat ourselves up senselessly, like internally. Like sometimes when no one else is listening, like we'll beat ourselves up pretty good
all the time.
Yeah.
In fact, I did it yesterday. I had a few moments where I felt a lot of shame, and then I got fucking angry at myself for feeling the shame, and I went into a spiral and a cycle. You know, I'm not. I have a lot of awareness, and I've moved through a lot of shit, but I'm fucking human. So are you. We all are. You know, So I hear that. Yeah, the confronting part. I mean, I had to be with it because So for me, I felt very blessed that I started to put together the pieces of my life, and I realized that what I endured as a child and what I endured as a teenager and a young adult and what I went through and what I put myself through and what I chose to move through, it made me very resilient and very tough. And I just gave myself no choice but to be with it. And that's not for everyone. Not everyone wants to do that or can do that. And there are times when I can't do that either, where it's just too overwhelming and I just can't do it and I don't want to do it. Maybe it's less can't and don't want to because it just feels too confronting. But man, I'd hit rock bottom. I had my balls and my face scraped across rock bottom so many times that I just didn't give myself a choice. Like I couldn't go back to how I was because it just felt so out of integrity. And so I just sat with the stuff and I cried a lot. I screamed a lot. I released a lot of anger, days, hours, every day. I couldn't speak. My voice was gone because of crying and the screaming, like the pain that was being released. And I didn't think it would ever end. And I also had support. I could ring someone and say, look, I feel like I'm dying. Is this normal? Like, do I keep going? What do I do? I would put on a weight vest and I would walk for fucking 6 hours just to clear the mind and be with nature. Like I went to extremes because that's all I knew. That's all I thought I knew. And it helped me. Now, I don't necessarily advocate that everyone goes to extremes, but guess what? You're going to have to fucking endure some hardship. And that's okay. That there's growth in that challenge. And you will come through it and come out of it a far more proficient human being.
I can only imagine. And so talk to me about how you have evolved. You're married now. Talk to me about Stefanos when he was going through this process or maybe pre-process, and how has that man evolved now as far as what you've learned and what you take with you to this pretty incredible marriage that you have?
Well, I carry clarity and integrity. I know who I am. And there are times where I doubt myself, and there are times where I slip into old patterns around shame and guilt, and not because I'm doing anything, just because I'm working through older stuff, layers, that I've been privileged enough to look at because of the stuff that I've done before, the deep work that I've done before. But I bring essentially clarity. I don't have doubt about my path. Ultimately, like an overarching doubt. I don't have that. I bring integrity. Like I say I'm going to do something, I'll do it. If I speak my truth, I don't hide anymore in the shadows. If I have a thought that's being persistent, I'll share that. If it needs to be shared because it's relative to my wife, I'll share that with her. I won't hold back. I won't lie and pretend because I'm worried that she's going to be upset or what is she going to think of me. I care less about what people think and more about speaking my truth from a non-malice place. Like I don't want to intentionally hurt anyone. It's not about that. But, hey, this is my truth. I learned, though, hiding myself. And when a woman would ask me, hey, are you happy to be in a relationship with me in a monogamous way? I would say, yeah. But that wasn't my truth. And what would have served her better would say, hey, I'm a clusterfuck of emotions right now, or I'm really inconsistent and I'm not really healthy right now and I want to have sex with lots of different women, if that's okay with you, great. But if not, that's cool too. I wasn't in that place. I didn't have that level of courage. I didn't have that level of self-connection and self-awareness. So I've changed a lot in the sense that I just want to speak my truth now from a place of not hurting people, but letting them know who I am and what they're working with and dealing with so that they can make very authentic decisions. And I'm less attached and less afraid of outcomes. Or what if I do this and my wife leaves me? Then, of course I'm going to be sad. I'm going to have emotions, but I'm not. I know my own self-worth. I know what I'm value. I know what my values. I know what my worth is. And that's not an arrogance thing or an ego thing. That is, this is who I am. I'm really in my authentic power. And I can't force someone to be happy with me. And I can't make other people happy.
Yeah, I'm so glad you went there as well. I know one of your expertise and one of the things you like talking about the most are these relationship dynamics and how to have a successful relationship with either with a significant other. What do you think most of us are missing when it comes to successful marriages, successful relationships, the intimacy that we want, the communication that we want, the teamwork that we want, the friendship that we want, like the whole 9 yards with the women in our lives?
Well, it's imperative. I mentioned this before. It's imperative that men are trustworthy. And so if you want what you want from your woman, what a woman wants is that trustworthiness, and what men want essentially is they want to not, and this is clinical research, by the way. This isn't anecdotal. This is clinical research. What men want is to not fight, but not have arguments with their partners, and sex. In the form, but that's how they feel intimate. When you start peeling back what sex means, yes, it's the primal act of sex, but it's more being seen, being appreciated, being understood, being acknowledged, being respected. Like that's what the sex does, and the fighting also does that as well, because if you're not fighting, then there's a resonance there, there's a harmony there. And that's what men want. And so if you want that as a man, you need to be trustworthy to the woman that you're with. And again, that comes in how available are you? When you're communicating with her, are you face-to-face with her, or are you side-on to her? Physiologically we're talking about, because primarily from an evolutionary perspective, you were side-to-side with your brothers when you were hunting, with the men in your life. You weren't that with your woman. When you're with your woman, you need to be intimate. You need to be face-to-face, front. And so are you doing that? Are you available in terms of the time, or are you on your phone when she's speaking to you? Are you trying to fix her or solve her problems when she's coming to you with pain? She just wants to share. That's her way of becoming intimate. She doesn't want you to fix it, but we go to fixing it because we suppress our emotions. And so our go-to strategy is to suppress that or fix that or get rid of it or move it on. Fix it. Efficiency. Let's go. Proficiency. So how are you showing up? How reliable are you? Are you saying something then doing it? Are you caring and sincere in your words and your actions? So we go wrong because we don't know the simplicity of what we need, yet the simplicity of what we need is actually really challenging to give, because we're blocked with so much trauma and wounding and patterns that don't serve being in a healthy relationship, because most of us grew up in unhealthy relationships. And we're mimicking that as adults, because as adults, what we're looking to do is recreate our primary caregiver relationships so that we can heal those wounds.
Have you ever read the book No More Mr. Nice Guy?
I want to say no. I was wondering if I have it here. I have it right here. Yeah, Glover. Yeah, I haven't read this one yet. Yep, I got it right here. Yeah, I knew it was familiar.
Yeah. So the reason I ask you about that book is because I see that being a really common theme with men in relationships. And first of all, I just want to acknowledge and reflect on a couple of things you said. Men, being appreciated, respected, and validated. Those seem to be the three biggest needs for men: feeling appreciated, feeling respected, and validation. Right. Yep. It's one of the reasons why we probably thrust so much of our energy into the workforce, because that's where it's like, oh, this is where I measure my success.
We're rewarded for it. Yep.
We're rewarded. We get the attaboys. We get that kind of thing. And I definitely understand, like my wife and I have had this discussion. I've known my wife for 24 years. We've been married for 16 years. And my wife, we've got a really healthy sex life. Everything's good. And we were talking about it the other day, just sex in general. And she was just like, she's like, what is it about sex with you guys and you in particular? Like, is it like, hey, like you just need that release, like you need to get off? And I was like, to be honest with you, like, I think if you ask most men, me included, it's probably one of the lowest things on the totem pole. Like the thing about sex is that everything that you just said, I've never heard it worded quite like that, but in that act and in that moment, you feel validated, you feel appreciated, you feel respected. It's the way we connect. It's the way that we're intimate. It's the way we show love and receive love and all that other good stuff. So I was telling her, I didn't articulate it like that. I was like, no, it really isn't. I was like, it's really, that is like, I feel most connected to you in that moment. And like, crossing the finish line is just a bonus, really. Like, but everything else that leads up to it and during is like, is all the good stuff. I wanted to kind of stick with this theme with the No More Mr. Nice Guy, because I see more and more men who, if you read that book, that he talks about these covert contracts. Well, if I do X, she'll do Y. Like if I do all these really nice things, then she'll do this for me. Like it's all these things, like these maybe hidden expectations. And men have a very hard time with sharing like, hey, this is what I need, want, and desire. Like we have a hard time communicating that because we don't want to be rejected. Oh my God, what if she says no? Or what if she thinks this or what? And you said another thing that, and I'm going to wrap all this up into a bow, I promise. But you said not being tied to the outcomes, not being tied to what is going to happen. I think, and I could be wrong because I feel like you're the real expert here, most men have such a hard time in some relationship dynamics because in a way, a lot of us feel trapped because we want to be able to communicate very clearly, keep our integrity, but we're also very, very scared that if I open up and I show her who I really am, what if she doesn't like that? And what if she leaves me? And if I do these things where I kind of tiptoe around the relationship and I play nice and all this other stuff, then hopefully she'll reciprocate and do these things that I need, want, desire, which by the way, I'm not even communicating. So that's a lot to say. That I feel like that's what happens with a lot of our guys. But what is really the first step for men to just be brave, to stay within that integrity, to actually maybe even state, hey, here's what I need, what I want, and I desire, but do it in a non-needy way? That's a big question.
Yeah, it's a great question. So it helps if we understand where we're coming from at a very simple level, right? And so, you said it earlier, appreciation, respect, validation. This links into these core fears that men have. They're human fears, but particularly men, rejection, abandonment, and humiliation. And we do everything we can to avoid that. And so if we think or believe for a moment that how we show up and how we present is going to have us feeling rejected, abandoned, and humiliated, then we're not going to do it. So we're going to continue to hide. So we're not in integrity. So we're not giving the woman what she needs. So we continue this vicious cycle of she needs transparency, she needs trustworthiness, but we're not showing up fully and speaking our truth because we're also attached to, well, I have to have a good outcome with what I'm about to say. Good meaning that it's favorable for me. Like I feel good. I don't feel rejected. I don't feel abandoned. I don't feel lost. I don't feel threatened or let go. And we're so attached to completion energy because masculine is very much in completion. There's evolutionary reasons for that and cultural reasons for that. But we are in this completion energy always. And so if we feel that we can't complete in a favorable way, we won't go there. Bypassing that comes back down to what I said earlier. We've got to do our inner childhood work. We've got to do our inner trauma work. Again, get support, find a shaman, a spiritual guide, a psychologist, a counselor, psychiatrist, whatever it is, a brotherhood, a men's group. Find support where you can work through some of your pains and some of the stuff that is difficult for you, because that will help you build confidence. Now, confidence is a gate, an open door towards deepening your self-worth, working on your inner childhood trauma and your pains and all that stuff that you've experienced, that you've suppressed, that you haven't dealt with. That helps you heighten your self-worth, your self-esteem, your I'm worthy, I'm enough. Now, when you believe that you are enough and you are worthy, not from an arrogant place that you're better than everybody else and that everybody else is beneath you, but rather from a place of, I really trust in who I am, I believe in my value, all of a sudden you're less attached to an outcome of how someone sees you or perceives you. And you can speak your truth, and you can speak your truth from a place of empowerment. And that's all everyone ever wants, man. People just want truth. I don't want to be friends with someone. I don't want someone in my life that's lying. Can't trust them. At a primal level, that's not going to work for me. And at a platonic friendship level, even just a love, an interaction, exchange of love, that's not going to work either. So we don't want that. We're not wired for that. We're wired to trust each other. Well, we're wired for a couple of different things. That's another conversation. But, there's the opportunity is to deepen our connection to our own selves. It's very seldom about the other person. It's more about us. So we've got to cultivate confidence and self-worth. And by the way, side note, confidence is very attractive to women at a hormonal, unconscious biological level, but also at a just very overt, a confident man, that's very fucking attractive. Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of us struggle with the most. It's kind of like it's like best kept secret, right? Is how we see ourselves. I'm glad you hit upon this, because as we wrap up, I'd like to finish with that. How might we improve our confidence level? How do we even get started with that?
Yeah, I would recommend lifting weights, and I'm being dead serious when I say that. Going to the gym or lifting heavy weights or just exercising your body, being adept in your body. It doesn't mean you have to be the world's strongest man or the world's fastest runner, but just being adept in your body. It does a couple of things. It requires self-discipline in order to get up every morning or to carve a time out of your day where you're training and working your body. There's challenges, micro and macro challenges that you go through in those sessions, every session. You've got to push your body. You're developing mental, emotional, spiritual, physical toughness and resilience. Toughness, our ability to move through difficulty. Resilience, our ability to recover from difficulty. That then builds confidence, self-awareness, self-respect, autonomy. These are all characteristics and virtues that women are very much attracted to. Literally just exercise and move your body, physically train your body, and you will start to cultivate a deeper sense of self and confidence. Now once you have a very visceral experience of confidence there, the parallels drawn is that you can then explore emotional difficulty, because you've got a very real life example of, I've been through some pretty tough times. I've done these Spartan races, 24 hours. I remember that was tough. I remember deadlifting 400 pounds. I've never done that before. And all the work that was required. I've been through some tough stuff. I remember that marathon that I ran, and it was hot. It was 95 degrees. And yeah, I can maybe I can look at this stuff. And so it gives us confidence because there's a parallel drawn. It trickles into other areas of our lives. I can deal with my son being difficult at the moment because I've been through difficulty. So I can help him get through this. I can be patient and calm. I don't have to be agitated and nervous and scared. And I can feel that stuff and I can still move through it because I've been through some pretty tough things. So physical challenge is where I would begin. It's very important. And it's understated. Very simple, but understated.
Yeah.
How many men do you know that make time for themselves, make time for their bodies?
I was just going to say that. The thing that men will sidestep the first thing they'll sidestep is their own health. I grew up I was overweight until I was about 16. And by overweight, really?
Yeah. 15.
I didn't expect that. I lost a bunch of weight when I was 17, and that everyone, people always ask like, well, hey, what was a turning point for you? Cause I failed 8th grade. I had to do 8th grade twice. I was I was a bit of a wreck when I was a kid. And I think a lot of that had to do with like the men that were in and out of my life and my mom being remarried and all kinds of crazy stuff. But I really turned to food for those self-regulation things, right? Yeah. And things really started to turn around when I was 17. I started lifting weights and lost weight, and I'm 45 now, and I hardly ever miss a day of training. And it's kind of funny that this podcast is so timely, because yesterday I don't know what it was. Like, I just, I woke up and I was in absolute horrendous headspace. And I was just like, I was kind of depressed for some reason. I think the quarantine was kind of getting to me.
Yeah.
The day was beautiful outside, and I was like, and that was actually adding insult to injury, because I was like, I was shitting on myself. I should be outside and enjoying this with my kids. I should be out there throwing the football, but I just don't feel like it. And my wife looked at me and she was like, she had just gotten back from a run, and she's like, what would turn your day around? And I was like, honestly, I was like, I kind of need some brotherhood and I need to go for a run. So I called my neighbor, who's a good friend of mine. We work out together. I'm like, hey man, what are you doing right now? He's like, nothing. I was like, you want to meet in like 30 minutes, go for a run? He's like, absolutely. And I got back, and dude, that turned my entire day around. Like, everything from that moment on to when I got back, it was a totally different day, how it finished. So I'm glad you said that.
So you're taking responsibility as well. Obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to go like, hold up a convenience store and, sniff some cocaine and shoot somebody, to get, for some vices that I have, but I didn't do that. I went for a run instead. Yeah. I want to make sure we point the audience in some direction for you. Where can men find the work that you do? I know that you work with men in general, but you've got all kinds of resources, even free resources.
Yeah. So you'll be able to find most of them, on all of them really, on my website, stefanossifandos.com, or my social media handles at Stefanos Sifandos. And you'll find there's so much information there.
That's awesome, man. Well, hey, audience, you don't have to worry about spelling that, because I'll have
don't try to spell it.
I'll have all his links in the show notes, so not to worry about that. And by the way, when this show releases, it will be my 45th birthday. This is our show on July 6th. So
nice.
This actually releases on my birthday. But guys, all you have to do is go to gooddadproject.com/273. We'll have all kinds of resources in there for you, as well as Stefanos's resources, all of his social media. If you want to contact him, get in touch with him. But hey, man, thank you so much for coming on. I can definitely understand why people wanted us to meet. It wasn't not only Omar who connected us, but I heard like after he did, like 3 other people were like, hey man, have you heard of Stefanos? Like, he's got to come on your show. Like, he's made for it. And I'm glad he did. So thanks for coming on.
I'm glad I'm here, brother. And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Gentlemen, again, for the links for this show, gooddadproject.com/273. Go out, live life on purpose, and above all else, live legendary. Take care.